Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tilson Live. It is Tuesday. It is 2 o'clock. We are coming at you live on YouTube, live on Facebook, as we do each and every single week to talk about all things building a new custom home on your land. I'm Eric Allard, part of the fourth generation of the Tilson family, joined as I am each and every, we'll get to this guy in a minute, joined as I am each and every single week by the great, the marvelous, the masterful, creator of all the things you see in the Tilson digital universe and a lot of what you see on the Tilson actual universe, Dawn Dantzler, Vice President of Marketing and Customer Experience. Good afternoon, Dawn.
Hey, Eric. How's it going?
It is awesome. It is a great, great day. Beautiful weather here in Texas. So we are excited to be here to talk about building on your land. Folks, as always, jump into the chat. Tell us where you're watching from, where you're building, what part of the process you are in. We want to hear from you. The whole show is about you. We know this stuff, or at least we think we do. Been doing it a long time. We should know what we're doing. But we want to be sure we impart that wisdom on you. We want to answer all of your questions, any reservations you might have about building a custom home on your land, whether it has to do with design, customization, financing, construction, warranty, permitting, and then especially today, Dawn, what are we talking about? And then I'm going to introduce this fine gentleman we have joining us.
We are talking about the biggest difference between building on your own land and buying in an existing subdivision. We are talking all about land prep. So what's all the stuff that I got to do to make this piece of property that nobody's ever lived on before livable? So.
That is exactly right, folks. So we are joined by the manager of our entire site preparation department, which we're going to talk about that here in a second, like what all that actually means. But the great, the marvelous, the masterful, not can we do that every time? Mr. John McIntyre coming at us live, manager of our site preparation, land development, site evaluation department. Really the part that most people have never, ever gone through. Even if you've bought a brand new home in a subdivision, John's whole team, this is what they do, the part of the process that you have not experienced yet, but is absolutely necessary to sustain life on your land, because you're going to want to be able to drink water and have air conditioning, maybe even have heat. You might even want to flush your commodes and have that water go somewhere. If you want any of those things to happen, you need John McIntyre in your life. That's what you need. So, John, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, obviously, kind of how long you've been doing this at Tilson, a little bit of your background. I know we were talking a little bit of cattle ranching before we got on today, so I know that's in your background. Let's talk a little bit of that and what you do here and kind of what you enjoy about that.
Yeah, I've been at Tilson now for 5.5 years. The majority of that time was spent in the field, actually working directly with customers, trying to help coach them through these things. And my background, I do some cattle ranching now. Prior to that, I was actually working with wild animals. I went to school, got a wildlife biology degree. I worked on some ranches in South Texas, and I got to experience some land development. We were building new roads, preparing areas for shops and barns, and bringing water and power to them. So I'd grown up on a septic, but I've learned most of my septic stuff since the time I've been at Tilson. But some of this stuff, I knew the equipment, I knew the kind of stuff that the contractors went through, and then I learned at Tilson how we apply that to home building. I've got family here at Tilson as well. I've got one less today. My wife decided she's going to stay home with our twins somewhat recently, but my brother's here. Many of his in-laws are here as well, and that's why I came to Tilson.
Yeah, I think John might actually have more relatives presently at Tilson than I do. So.
Sorry.
Eric was saying you have more relatives who work for Tilson than he does.
That might be. I don't know.
Not that we're keeping score.
It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
It's pretty close. And John, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Lindale, Texas.
All right, so he's an East Texas boy at heart, but yeah, he's been all around South Texas, Central Texas. So knows the lay of the land, knows the Texas like the back of his hand. So we are going to talk about all things site preparation today, folks. So do jump into the chat. Tell us where you're watching from, where you're building, what part of the process you are in. We want to hear from you. And then, today is all about any questions you may have at all about construction, design, financing, whatever. But specifically, if you need any kind of assistance or have any questions at all float around your head about how do I get a road to my place? What is a culvert? Who does the septic system? When should it go in? How do I find out about a water well? What about the utilities? The power company's telling me this, but Tilson's telling me that. All of that stuff is what we're going to talk about today. We have a whole presentation for you, but do jump into the chat. We are live on YouTube, live on Facebook, coming at you every single week. And I want to hear from you. Drop us into the chat where you're watching from, where you're building, and what part of the process you are in. And we're excited to hear from you. So I see Denise is on. We want to see somebody chime in too.
All right. We got Denise saying hello from Pearland, building the Canyon D in Chapel Hill. Have you heard of any issues with loan processing at Wagon Hill? We received a call from our loan processor who said his license had expired, so they will now have to redo our loan. This is a bit concerning.
Great question. So, and actually it varies from state to state, Denise. So they are licensed in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. If you decide to buy property down there, you're good to go. And so, no, it's not a concern. They have multiple loan officers there with multiple license holders. And they are renewed in Texas. We do have, in fact, their rep lives in Missouri City, so not too far from your Pearland location there. So yeah, no, there's not anything to be concerned about there. They did come up on a chat yesterday, but you're going to be in good shape. But they do have to get relicensed in the various states, but they have, as long as they have representation of the license holder in Texas, they're cleared to go.
Okay. All right. We've got Carrie saying hello from Spring, building a Polidoro around the corner from Republic Grand Ranch in Willis, Texas, San Jacinto County. Flooring going in this week. Can't wait to move in this summer. Awesome.
That's very cool. So she's not in Republic. She's around
that area.
Yeah, to 97 East, towards San Jacinto County.
That's exciting.
Very nice.
Just send us some pictures when you get in there.
Yeah, and Denise, make sure I answer your question adequately and make sure you're still comfortable, and we can get anything else we need to answered for you. But
yeah, absolutely. All right. We've got Rick coming in asking, can one take well and rainwater and store it in a large metal cistern on the property? I believe this is a thing in the hill country. I want to do it in San Jacinto County.
Well, right out of the chute, Mr. McIntyre.
All right.
What do you think? I have an answer, but we're going to defer to John. Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, there's no reason that couldn't be done. Both rainwater collection and well water stored in generally cisterns would be below ground. Generally, and normally we are storing that water above ground. But there's absolutely no reason that the two couldn't be stored in the same container. I would add, though, that if you're going to store rainwater with your well water, you may need to treat that water, all of it, as if it was rainwater. So that would be one extra consideration, but there's no reason you couldn't do that. No.
Very good advice. Yeah, and I actually would lean toward. I know, Rick. I know the metal containers look kind of cool. I would defer to a black plastic, if it were me, a polyethylene container, solid black. A lot less issues with any kind of leaking or oxidation, and it keeps the sunlight out, which is really important. So just something to consider. I know they don't look as cool, but if you're going to have one above ground, I recommend.
The liners in those can be quite thin, and the self-tapping screws holding the steel together, it looks like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, they're not going to last very long.
Yeah.
Okay. Rick is saying that he's going to have a whole house filtration system. So does that cover, John, what your concerns were with treating it?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Fantastic.
Maybe I would probably throw in a liquid chlorinator in that as well before the filtration, personally.
All right. Brenda's joined in from League City. She's a realtor and has clients interested in building out in Hempstead. All right. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Awesome. Welcome.
We've got Jason. Howdy. Our Angelina is completely dried in and is looking beautiful. I think the rough in for the AC will occur on Friday. By the way, Danny is fantastic. He took me to lunch, which was a nice gesture.
Oh, that's
cool.
That
is sweet. That's
cool.
cool.
That's where you went for lunch. I want to know, did you go to Lufkin? Did you go to Grapeland? Somewhere between the two? So we'd love to hear about it.
Awesome.
There's like 3 places in Grapeland, so there can't be that. Hopefully it took you to Lufkin.
We've got Angela saying hi from Kima, building a Bear B in Blanco County, and just had our stakeout meeting. It is about 90 days until construction starts from this point.
It can be, yeah, that's possible. So from the site evaluation, yeah, that's very very doable in Blanco County, especially. Would come down to how decisive we can be about our color selections and our foundation design, because that's the big key component at this point. Is we're going to get that foundation design engineer. So now we can order our soil test, which is a really important part of the process, obviously. Order that soil test. When that comes back, also order the engineer foundation design when those plans are signed. So those are the big key milestones. So as long as we don't have a whole lot of any changes at all to the foundation footprint, I don't see any reason why we couldn't hit that in 90 days or less in Blanco County.
All right. Jason's saying that they went to Lufkin and they had steaks, and that Danny's a real credit to Tilson.
Dang, agreed.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing, Jason.
Actually ran into Danny at the El Jimador number 10 in Crockett, Texas on one Friday evening. It was pretty funny.
Okay.
I know. On Loop 304. Shout out El Jimador. Get after it. It's good stuff.
All right. We got Deborah saying hi from Clear Lake City, building a Magnolia in Blanco County. Roof decking is on and windows are going in. It's so exciting to see the vision start to become reality. Awesome.
That's crazy. So how does Deborah not know Angela? Because Kima is about a stone's throw from Clear Lake City, and you're both building in Blanco. So I mean, I'm curious how you could not.
How do you know they don't know each other?
I don't know they don't know each other, but yeah, you run. If you don't, just meet up on NASA Road 1. You're very close. You're probably less than a mile away, and apparently you're building in the same area. So you've got a carpool or something. Like there's no way you should be driving out there by yourselves.
Awesome. All right. Well, y'all keep dropping in your questions, and we will answer every single one of them. But let's go ahead and start in on the presentation. So like we said, we're going to be talking about stakeout, and just these are, about land preparation. So I'm going to give a little bit of our history for people who maybe it's your first time coming in. So just tell you who we are and why you should listen to us, and then talk about some of the paperwork, boring stuff that you need to get done before you can work with John's team.
Well said.
I get the boring stuff. It's my role.
Take that, administrative personnel at Tilson Homes. That includes me, by the way.
I'm gonna get letters. Okay. So who we are, or who I used to be when I worked here, was Tilson Homes, and we have over 90 years of experience building on our customers' own land in the state of Texas. It is all we do. So we are definitely the experts in the field. We were founded in 1932, and it's been Texas family owned and operated for 4 generations. We have built over 40,000 homes on our customers' own land, and about 10 families per week are moving into their new Tilson home. So lots of experience in the area. When we are talking about built on your lot, what we mean by that is that it is property you own. So it's your lot, your land. Could be a farm or a ranch, could be your retirement property, your second home site, your lakefront property, anything. Basically, the point is that you are having the home of your choice built on your site that you have picked out on your own. So to get all of this done, there's going to be some pre-construction responsibilities because the operative word in built on your lot is your. Since we do not own the property, there are certain things that we are not able to do in all of this process to get everything set up for you to start building. And this is kind of that list. We're going to help you through all of it whenever we can. But some of these things are going to come down to you. The first is getting your 911 address. So we'll walk you through that process, but we're going to need you to get with the county and get your official 911 address for your location, just so in case anything happens, we can summon emergency services if we need to in that unlikely event, and get you registered with them. The second thing is going to be your utility setups. That is something that you are going to need to take care of as the property owner, because a lot of times it requires you to grant an easement on your property. We can't do that on your behalf because it's your land, not ours. So we need you to go ahead and set up those accounts and do any of that stuff that needs to happen. The next one is permit application filings. In some counties, it's starting to loosen up a little bit, but there are some counties where they literally will not let the builder, they won't let anybody who is not the property owner actually file the application for the permit. So we can help you get all of that prepared, tell you where it needs to go, help you take, let you know how to take that in, but we may need you to actually complete that process for us. And then, there are going to be some other responsibilities. So there's things when you're looking on our website and you're seeing our base prices, there's items not included in that that you may choose to do instead of us, or you may elect to have us do it. It's up to you. But these are things like site clearing, septic systems, things like that you're going to need for the property, and a lot of stuff that John's going to be talking about today. So before you build, we're going to have some stuff that, are necessary items. So that we're going to go through some important documents that we have. You're also going to need to set up utilities, and we need site access, and then we're going to plan out your site and prepare it for building. So in the documents, it really falls into 3 categories. The first is your deed and title, and we do recommend having insurance on that. Then your plat and survey, and a copy of your deed restrictions. So when I'm talking about a deed, what we are looking for is the official deed. It's just your proof of ownership. Before we can build something on your land, we need evidence that it is in fact your land. So we're going to need that documentation. And it's just your proof of ownership. What we're looking for it to be a valid deed is a document that lists the grantor, which is the seller, and the grantee, which is the buyer. And that needs to be the same name that's on the contract with Tilson. It's going to contain the property description. It could potentially include a sales price. It's not really necessary that it has it. But the seller's signature must be notarized, and it must be recorded with the county that the property is in order for it to be considered a valid deed. So we're looking for all of the indications that all of those things have been done. Title insurance. This is not something that you 100% have to have, but we do recommend, if you are at the beginning of looking to purchase the property, even if it's a gift, please always make sure that you're getting a title insurance policy. This is just something that's going to protect you to make sure that property has exchanged hands completely free and clear every time that anyone has granted it to somebody else. So it's just ensuring a clear title. It avoids, discovering that there's any disputed liens or judgments and having somebody be able to come and make a claim on that property and say, wait a minute, this isn't yours, you owe me money because somebody else put this forth as on some other debt. So this is something that you should request from your title company as soon as your earnest money contract is signed, and they're going to do all the research and make sure that every time that property switched hands, it was done cleanly, and then they'll protect you in the future from any claims on that. And then we're also going to want you to have a survey of the property, and this is just a drawing of the property that shows us exactly where those barriers are. So lots of imaginary lines. The dark imaginary lines that you're seeing are the actual edges of the property. And then you're going to see some dotted lines that are showing things like the building setbacks, any easements, things like that. So areas of the property where we may not be able to put a permanent structure, stuff like that. And we're also going to want you to make sure that those corner pins that are indicated are able to be located and flagged so that we can visibly see the barriers on that property, the edges. All of the dimensions are going to be listed on the boundary survey, and it should list any kind of flood zone information. And we are looking for that official registered professional land surveyor stamp and a signature to make sure that it is a valid survey. And then the last thing that you're going to want, depending upon where you've bought your property, is the deed restrictions and covenants. So this is going to vary depending upon where the land is located, and it's going to designate any, thoughts of different things, how you can, live on your property, what you can do, how you can behave. But mainly what we're looking for is your home design requirements. So in a lot of cases, this is going to include stuff like a minimum square footage. If we're dealing with lakefront property, it might dictate a maximum height. It could dictate the required materials. What types of siding are we allowed to use? Is there a percent masonry requirement? Do they require a certain type of roofing? All of that kind of stuff. Sometimes they dictate what colors can be used. Is there a garage requirement? Does it have to be attached or detached allowed? It could even tell us which direction the bays of the garage, those doors can face. And any kind of plan approval guidelines. So is there a committee that we have to, submit your plans to that has to approve all of these things? It may also state requirements for construction, including any types of necessary deposits. Do we have to have a dumpster? Different things like that. So this is just stuff that we would be interested in looking through. And one piece of advice: if you have not bought your property yet, get these before you do it, because by buying that property, you have agreed to them. You don't get to negotiate it later if you don't like what it said. Tough. You are supposed to know that when you buy it. So make sure that you get those documents and read through them. All right. Well, I do see that we've got a couple of comments coming in. So before we get into utilities, let's go ahead and answer those questions. So let's see. Angela and Deborah are making plans to meet. So they're gonna get together. They're friend requesting. So Eric, you made a connection.
Yeah, they've got to be close. There's no way they're not. They haven't shot.
They're probably together
ATV.
already.
Yeah, and yeah.
All right. We've got Brenda asking, are there areas for new builds that are more problematic than others, places to avoid?
Well, as far as areas, I won't get into that, but John, talk a little bit about what you see. I'll take the easy one. Floodplain is something I would avoid if possible. But
city limits.
I would also avoid cities if you can.
Yeah, honestly, as far as problematic, I would say those restrictions are going to be the number one thing. We do have some cities, some subdivisions that we build in that they just make it more of a headache to go through the process. There's never anything that we uncover that can't be overcome. That's the simple truth. But as far as problematic, it's normally trying to walk somebody else's process. That's generally what it comes down to for us.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just avoid floodplain and municipalities. All right, but some people like cities.
Yeah.
It's just going to be slower. She didn't say if she shouldn't do. Well, I guess she did say places to avoid, but
yeah,
it's just going to make your timeline longer. All right. And then we have Rick saying, so walk us through the process. I have 28 acres and be interested in knowing what the current value is. Is that done in pre-qualification or is that before? And does it make sense to get it appraised?
So an appraisal will be done, Rick, prior to the onset of construction. You could get it appraised now. I wouldn't spend the money on doing it. You probably get a pretty good idea from the tax appraisals. So you can go to the county's website and get your a tax appraisal. They're not that far off. Sometimes they're actually about, depending on where, 85 to 90% of the actual true market value right now. Again, depending on where. If you're extreme, West or South Texas, it's probably maybe even not quite that much. But so let's say they have it on there for $200,000. It may be worth a little more than that. So take that 200,000 divided by 0.85 or divided by 0.9. That's your real value of the land. But it will vary a little bit by the house that's going on there, but not a whole lot. So I wouldn't pay the money to have an appraisal done, but it's going to be one of the first things that happens once you start the process. But they really can't do a proper appraisal until they know what house you're building, like literally the house, what size garage, changes, size porch, all that kind of stuff. So anything beyond that, to spend money on finding anything else before that, I think you'd just be spending money because you're going to have an appraisal done on that. So,
okay. All right. And then Denise, we do have John from Wagon Hill advising you to go ahead and reach out to him.
Courageously communicating. Look at him getting after it.
Yes. So there's some information in that message if you didn't see it. That is in fact John from Wagon Hill. We can verify that if you want to give him a call and get everything kind of cleared up. So we're not sure what the misunderstanding is. And then we've got Brenda asking, do you require a topographic survey?
Have at it, John.
There are some cities, some subdivisions that require topographic surveys.
Hey, John, what is a topographic survey?
Ooh. Well, that's going to be a survey that shows, I can't think of any other way to say it other than the topographic gradient, so that you'll see multiple lines on your survey, and they may represent every foot or every 5 feet or every 10 feet in elevation change. And I cut my teeth in the hill country, so it's going to be 5 and 10 feet increments. But depending on where you are, it's just going to be relative to your property, so that it's neither too busy nor lacking in information.
Yeah, there's not, as far as I know, there's no counties that require a topographic survey. So a survey showing the contour lines, the elevation changes. But there are some cities, and what they're trying to find, Brenda, is they're trying to figure out drainage. They're trying to make sure that you're not going to run water onto the neighbor or into a creek watershed or onto the highway or something like that. That's what they're trying to figure out.
Okay.
Or they don't know what they're asking for, which is also a thing in the city.
It sounds important. And then Jocelyn is asking, will there be a lien placed on your land if you take the Easy Buy program route during the build? Are there additional fees after contract?
There'll be a lien on your land no matter who you built with. Dawn, I'll let you explain how that works.
Okay. So yes, since with our Easy Buy program, since we are using our money to build your home, we are going to put a lien on the land to protect us, to make sure that we're not, building this house and aren't going to have any claim on you after the fact, to be able to get it paid for. That is the sole reason that we are doing it. We do not want your land. The last thing we want is a piece of property that we built your house on. So we are going to work with you to make sure that we do everything we can to get you in that home. But we do, as a company, John and I and Eric too, we are very personally attached to our paychecks, and we want to make sure that we are able to, continue to make money and stay in business as a company. And like Eric said, you are going to have a lien on your property no matter who you're building with, because that's also the first thing that happens when you get a construction loan and when you get a mortgage. All of those companies also have a lien on your property. It's just a promise that you're going to pay. There is nothing nefarious about a lien being on your property. It's pretty standard practice. As far as additional fees, the only fee that it's not really even a fee. The only thing that you're going to pay us by participating in the Easy Buy program is we do have a $3,000 non-refundable deposit. And honestly, that applies no matter what financing you are going for with us, and that is going to be credited to you at closing. So it's not an additional fee above and beyond. There's no charge for using the Easy Buy program. That's just the money to get us started and make sure that we can pay John's team and the people that were coming in to do, the soil testing and all of that kind of stuff. So that's really it. There's really not a catch or anything hidden with Easy Buy. It's pretty straightforward.
In fact, it's way less fees if you use Easy Buy, quite frankly.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the tune of $30,000 plus.
Yep. All right. Kevin's saying he's looking to build multi-generational. Can I add a second master to pretty much any plan? He's specifically asking on the Paula Duro. And yeah, we can make that happen. All of our plans are 100% customizable. So whatever you're looking for, you may not see, you're not going to see it as a pre-designed option on our website, but all of our design consultants are very skilled and they can draw that and price that out for you in the location and make that happen. All right. And Jocelyn says, thank you for that information.
Of course.
Right. Of course. Anytime. But these are great questions. Y'all keep putting them in, and then we're going to let
you drop the questions in.
Yeah, we're going to let John talk about utilities.
Okay, so utilities, Eric kind of joked earlier, but it's true. We absolutely have to have these to build our homes, or build homes for our customers, rather. Power maybe being one of the most obvious. I don't see many of the builders out there with hand saws. I think we really need to get those power tools up and running, which means we need to do that prior to having the home built, finished, and connecting it to the power grid as well. And then water is another one of those that we really need to have something in place before we can get started. But as far as wastewater, that's one that, interestingly, even in some counties where we don't have to obtain building permits, we're going to have to obtain so we're going to have something that we provide to that county in the form of maybe a septic permit or show plans to connect to the sewer. And then when we get into natural gas and propane a little bit further down the road, I think what we're going to show really is that that's optional. And from my experience, its popularity comes and goes in waves. It's kind of odd. But when we get big freezes like we had 3 or 4 years ago, propane gets real popular, and then it starts to wane off, and then it finds its way back generally right after a nasty winter. So
makes sense.
Yeah, we'll get into those as we dive more into these specific items.
Awesome.
So This is, we've got 4 different examples of power here. Now, as you can see in the slide, most of our customers, because we really do, I think a large part of our work, we always cater to it, but still to this day, a large amount of our customers are rural customers. So a lot of them, most of them, in fact, are going to find that they're working with an independent co-op for their power. We will need at some point to meet a representative from the power company aside. We will ask you to do this, but more recently, we've been trying to help facilitate that connection a little bit more. So we've been offering to join at every one of these meetings, and most of our customers have taken us up on this. Now that gives us an opportunity to make sure that there's nothing lost in translation. We found a few occasions that we were able to advocate for our customers as well, simply because there's normally more than one way to skin a cat, and it's easy sometimes to just get in a role of doing the same thing every time, and every now and then it gives us the opportunity to say, well, hey, what if we did this? Because we see an opportunity to save somebody a significant amount of money, or they've already expressed to me that they're looking for a low visibility option. So let's investigate that. We do need that temporary power to build the home, and we've kind of hit on that just jokingly, but you can see in this leftmost photo, that is an example of temporary power. The other 3 are a more permanent solution, but interestingly, sometimes permanent power can be our temporary source. So all 3 of these on the right-hand side, that's what we would see in those, and each one of them that I can tell already has plugs in them. So we can put an extension cord into that. We can run over to the house. We can run our power tools, and then once the home is finished, it's as simple as make a connection and you're on the grid. And then I kind of mentioned that low visibility option. There is overhead versus underground. The one on the left here is that temporary setup. It's intended later to be an overhead connection so that last line just droops down and hits the house. And if you've driven through the old part of town, and a lot of homes out in the country, you're going to see this kind of setup. But it has become more and more common to go underground to a house that is a little bit lower visibility, might give you an opportunity to hide some of this equipment from view. And then for that matter, we've got cities and subdivisions that are requiring us to go underground no matter what. So we want to investigate all those options with our customers, meet with that power company, make sure that we lay out everything available to us, and then let our customers make informed decisions around that. So water, that's another one that it's absolutely necessary. You can't truly live in a home without it. And for us, we can't truly build a home without it. We've got to connect that water in a lot of cases to our homes. That's part of the pre-pour inspection before we get concrete on the ground. A lot of times we've got need to have water in those lines and have those lines pressurized. But moreover, I do believe this is in fact an OSHA requirement as well, that we have water at a construction site. So there really are there's at least 3 different options that I can think of. Most commonly, that's either going to be public water or a private source of water or water well. It's almost the same, but that rainwater collection, and we kind of hit on that earlier in a question, that's an option as well. And that's becoming more and more common in some areas, particularly the hill country. They're seeing a lot more rainwater collection there. So if we were to go with public water, that means there's a water main somewhere. There's a massive water line probably at the road, and it's carrying lots and lots of water to everybody in that community. We would need to tap into that. The water company would want to set a meter on that so they can meter your usage and charge you accordingly. And if those 2 things are not already in place, we may have to pay a tap fee and a fee to have that meter set, if not a monthly fee for the meter itself and the usage. And then drilling water wells, we've actually had customers drill water wells even when we had public water available, simply because that was what they wanted to do. I know for my own self, I've been in the mindset of I'm going to build my next house, right? Why would I not? I work for a home builder. And I want to go with public water. There's no doubt about it. I've got my dad. I'm buying some family land from him. There is public water there. My personal inclination is just drill my own water well and have access to that water myself. So of that, as you can see here on the slide, we have customers who drill their own private water well. We have customers who share a water well with the neighbor, and that's extremely common in a lot of instances that we see families splitting up land, and they've already got one next door. Why would I spend another $15,000, $25,000, $30,000 depending on the location? I can write up a legal agreement. I can have access to that water, and I can satisfy those requirements. So that's something we see not terribly uncommon.
Okay, awesome.
Sewer and septic. Sewer or septic rather. This is interestingly one of the things that the state cares most about. All septic is monitored by TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. All of the installers, all of the designers, they have state regulated licensing, but we absolutely cannot build anywhere without a plan for this wastewater. Like I said, I kind of joked, but I have an uncle who built himself a house, but he did not install his own septic because that was the one thing that required a permit in that county. So again, if it's kind of similar to the water situation, we either have access to public utilities in our area, and there might be a main along the side of the road if we're not very far from town, and that will carry it somewhere, and it will treat that water in a community type setting so that water can be reintroduced into the environment. Or we can do that through a septic, which a septic is technically just an on-site sewage facility, OSSF. So really we're doing the exact same thing no matter which way we go. We're just talking about a difference of scale. So in our case, most of our customers are going to be on a septic system because, again, we serve a lot of rural customers. But the ones that are on sewer systems, that's nothing new for us either. It really just depends on our proximity to town and how big of a town that is we're talking. So again, septic permits, because this is a on-site sewage facility, that designer, that installer, they're both going to be licensed by TCEQ. So they're both going to have to maintain some rigorous continuing education and standards that are monitored by the state. But every septic that's installed should have a design that has been reviewed and approved by that county. Even really doesn't matter where we go, the county is the one handling that. So that registered sanitarian, this is the designer in that case, he's going to put together a plan that shows the property, the home, any other things on the property that may affect the septic, like a swimming pool or a body of water, a creek. He's going to show the layout of all of that stuff. He's going to show the type of soil that we have in the area and the type of septics that are suitable for that soil, in addition to the design specific to that home and that customer's property. All of these are going to be sent to the county. It usually is a 2 to 4 week process to obtain approval. Then we've got that permit in hand, and in most cases, that's essentially when we're able to begin construction, because we're either going to pull the building permit and the septic permit at the same time, or we're going to get that septic permit and immediately pull our building permit. So there's a note in here about some revisions. Honestly, on that, the more information we can gather up front, the more accurately we can represent everything on paper. We can try to avoid those revisions as much as possible, but it is going to go through a review process. And if the county were to find anything that they weren't particularly happy with, they would contact that registered sanitarian and have him make those changes.
Okay.
Natural gas or propane. Again, this is an option. This is not something we do on every single home, but we do see it come in waves. And you can see on this buried tank, there's actually a generator sitting directly behind that. So again, we go through these bad freezing periods, or we have issues with ERCOT, and everybody wants a generator, everybody wants a propane generator, and everybody wants a propane tank. And I kind of like cooking on gas myself, quite frankly. But if we've got natural gas in the area, again, we're in town in most cases. We've got that infrastructure available to us that we can tap into. There's going to be a company that oversees that, just like that power company, just like a water company. We can contact them. We can conduct a feasibility study, and they'll come out to our property. They'll evaluate it with us, and they'll determine what is needed to make sure that there's gas right up to the property so that then we can get it to the home. And then if we're doing propane, we've got a lot more options available to us because it's just a standalone tank. And we're going to have a supplier drive out to us and fill that tank on a periodic basis. And then when we do go that route, as you can see in these photos, we've got options again about above ground versus below ground. So we can mix and match all sorts of combinations here. The cool thing about gas appliances is that you have so many different options as to which appliances you want to run on gas versus electricity. And some people have, strong opinions one way or the other. Interestingly, if you go far enough back in time, we used to run our refrigerators, lights, tractors, and trucks on propane. It's not very common anymore. So it's it's a pretty interesting source of energy, in my opinion, and it lasts forever. It stores very well. So I'm a big fan of propane myself.
Okay, awesome. Well, we do have a couple questions, so let's go ahead and get those before we get into site access. So we've got Brenda asking, from contract signature, how long until construction is complete on average?
What's the average, Dawn?
So your average is going to be somewhere between 10 to 12 months. And the things that are going to impact that, Brenda, are like we were hinting at earlier when someone was asking how long from their site evaluation to going under construction, how decisive you are, how often you change your mind, how good of an idea you have of everything that you want. So there's a lot of it that relies on you. So how quickly all of these things that John's talking about that we need to get in place, how quickly all of those things can be accomplished. And then once we're released to construction, it's all on us, and we're going to get that all done. But on average, it's 10 to 12 months. The other thing that's going to impact, like we were kind of joking around earlier, is where the property is. If it's within a city's jurisdiction, things like permits and approvals are going to take longer. If you have a really adamant ACC in your community that's going to review those design plans and try to send them back to us a few times prior to approval, that's going to take a little bit longer. So it really comes down to those types of things. But as quickly as we want it built as quickly as possible, because like I mentioned, most of our customers do use that Easy Buy program. So we are building your house with our money. So we want you in it as quickly as possible so we can get that money back. So that's how it is. And then Brenda was also asking if we could clarify, did she put in the well first before construction starts?
So Brenda, only if it's going to be inaccessible once the home is built. Ideally, yes, we need water to do. We don't need water to pour the concrete, but shortly thereafter, we're going to need water on site pretty quick. Certainly to do any of your stone, paint, sheetrock, all of that, we have to have water. But it doesn't have to be in there like the day we go set forms, but you need to be on the list, especially if there's a wait with your water well company. You need to be on that list, and typically the water well is a significant distance away from the home where it's not in the way, unlike the septic where it could be damaged. The water well is typically further away, 30, 50, 100 feet away or so. So it's not really in danger of getting harmed. So there's no reason not to go ahead and put it in. But I'm not going to say it's 100% necessary before construction starts, but it is a little easier that way.
Okay. And then James is asking, can you accommodate green energy installation, e.g. solar, during construction? Are heat pumps an option in all electric homes?
Okay, so I'll answer the second part first. It's my favorite thing to do. And so yes, all electric homes, you're going to actually, not just an option, your HVAC system will be a heat pump. on an all-electric home. That's going to be standard with us. There are heat pump options for water heaters, so we could investigate that if you want to. That's not going to be the standard, but it is something that we can investigate. But your HVAC system will be a all-electric with a heat pump standard. And then on the optional energy installations, so solar, yeah, I mean we can accommodate. We typically can run conduit, up to the roof or up to the attic for sure, and then down to the electrical panel, conduit from there. We don't typically see people put solar in. That comes later when they come knocking on your door and get a giant commission for putting you on a loan for 30 years and putting a lease on solar panels. Don't do it. It's not a good idea, but that's it, my opinion. They take advantage of people. But anyway, it is an option. And actually, there's some code like the 2024 IRC and some 2021 portions of IRC we actually have to accommodate and put conduit going from the attic portion down to the breaker box, the breaker panel, to allow for solar hookups. It's not worth it. There's no point. But you do you. It's America, free country. Do what you think is right. And I certainly wouldn't pay someone to do it. I would make sure that I got some kind of subsidy government program that pays for it. I would never, ever, ever pay to have solar panels put on my house.
Okay. Angela is asking, what do you know about vertical slimline gas tanks? My father-in-law has one that's not buried, and he says he's only refilled it once.
Go ahead.
I can't say I'm very familiar with that term, vertical or slimline. I would say as far as propane tanks go, they definitely come in multiple sizes.
Yep.
In addition to that, I would be curious about the demand on that propane that the house has. Asking which appliances are actually being ran on propane. If he's only using the fireplace, and in Texas we're probably not using a fireplace very often, I would imagine that propane lasting forever. If he was running a water heater, a washer, a dryer, I kind of joked earlier about refrigerators and such, but the more demand he put on that tank, the faster it's going to go. And so there's kind of a lot of variables there that I can't really answer to. But when I hear that term, vertical or slimline gas tank, I'm really thinking just a smaller, maybe 250, 500 gallon tank. And under some circumstances, yes, that could last a very long time.
I'm thinking even smaller than that, Sean. I'm thinking like at our Waxahachie Design Center, the Fayetteville model, we have literally just a propane fireplace, and behind the garage is a vertical. So it looks like a regular, like a barbecue propane tank, but it's probably 100 gallon, probably 50 or 100 gallon. But it's big, and it sits literally just behind the garage. And to John's point, if you're only burning your fireplace or maybe just a cooktop, yeah, you may not refill it. Like I have 1,000 gallon propane tank, but I have 2 tankless water heaters. I have 2 furnaces. I have a gas cooktop. I have a daughter and a wife. They take long showers. Like these are, so it's going to depend. It's going to vary wild. I've only filled it up one time, but it's also 1,000 gallons. So, and by the way, it's about 20% full, which like I checked it yesterday. So it is going to depend on. Oh, I do have a gas fireplace as well. But like Sean said, it's 86 outside right now, so probably not burning that. But it is going to depend. If he only has something small, it's not a matter. I'll say this: they're no more efficient or less efficient than a regular. It's a tank is a tank is a tank. You're going to burn so many gallons of propane or natural gas with whatever you're running. A tankless water heater is a great example because they're about 90,000 BTU. They burn a lot of gas. That's okay because you're heating your water to shower, and you're not heating water that you're not using, as opposed to a conventional water heater where they're probably 30 or 40,000 BTU, but they're just sitting there. So it's not any more efficient, I guess is the best way to say that. The appliances themselves create the demand on how many BTUs you're going to be using.
Okay. And then Kevin is asking, can someone look at the site where I plan to build and give an estimate on the cost to build on that land, prepping cost, and would that be complimentary?
John, go.
We can and have visited customers or prospective customers' properties, and we've looked them over. What we have a very difficult time doing, or my team especially, we don't have the ability to provide estimates. We can't give pricing. What we do generally, and this is just a day-by-day basis, we're gathering information and providing that back to our sales consultants, who sometimes they're going through pricing teams who are reaching out to contractors, and they're directly obtaining pricing for individuals' customer circumstances. And if that's not the case, it may be something extremely common. Like, we do know for a fact what it costs to run a water line. We run so many water lines that by the foot, we have a pretty darn good idea of it. So that they can go pull up out of a price book. But things that we would generally consider to be professional property services, septic's not even a good example. Clearing, construction drives, foundations. There's a lot of things that are just so site specific. We've got to gather all the information. We may need to go consult with some third parties, and then we're able to provide that pricing sometimes later. So no, my team would not be able to do that, but we definitely look at customers' property with them and make sure that we're not getting into anything that should scare them, essentially. And the answer to that really is always no. There's nothing to be scared of here.
Yeah, it's really not. And Kevin, the other thing that no one will be able to tell you, no builder, nobody can tell you until they do a geotech. So, we can tell you how out of level a piece of property is. Like, we can shoot grades. John and his team they have laser transits. They can tell you exactly what the fall is. And we can even get bids on what it would cost to build that up to level. But there's absolutely no way to tell you what the foundation cost compliance will be until a geotechnical investigation is done. Like, in other words, you got to spend $1,800, $2,000 on a soil test inside the footprint of the home to be able to tell you what the engineer is going to have to do. What size, what width beams, what depth beams, how many there should be, cable spacing, all of that. And any builder who tells you otherwise is shooting from the hip. And so I'd run the other way. That's something else to consider. Like, we can tell you most of the cost to build, but not all, without doing a geotech. Mm-hmm. On the exact home you're building, by the way. We got to know exactly, like, how many cubic yards of concrete we'll be using. So what's the width, what's the depth, what's the offsets, what's the out of level. Those are all things that have to be tabulated to get you an accurate price. The good news is we will do that before we ever drive a nail. So you will know before we ever start construction exactly what that's going to cost.
All right. And then we have another question from YouTube. Do we have the option to use our own HVAC installer that is bonded, or do we have to use the person that you provide?
It is an extremely rare scenario, Ms. Fuselier, that you could use an HVAC contractor outside of ours. We're going to need to see some of their work. We're going to need to know what codes they currently build to. Obviously, they have to be licensed in Texas. They'll need to carry insurance. There's some minimums there that has to be done. And also, we will need to know, are they doing their own manual J calculations? Will they use a provided one? How do they meet the energy code? What are they doing? Have they worked in homes that are spray foam insulation? Because those are all things we'll need to know. That is an area that can get real off the rails very quickly from a humidity and moisture standpoint in your attic and in your house. And we don't want to take that risk. So we're going to be very, very critical on that. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying we're going to be very, very critical and invasive about the work that they've done.
Okay. All right. These are great questions. Keep dropping them in, and we're going to talk about site access.
Okay. So one of the first activities beyond the soil investigation that Eric got into a little bit there, one of the first things that we're going to do to begin construction is pour concrete. And those are some extremely heavy vehicles. They're extremely large vehicles in most cases. So we need to ensure that we have good physical access onto the property. Now, legal access is another whole other story, but we've got to be able to get those trucks in. And then after the concrete, and that might be one of the biggest hurdles, we've then got to get semi trucks in and out on a regular basis. And they're going to bring masonry. They're going to bring lumber packages. They're going to bring a septic tank. They're going to bring a lot of really large things. So what we're thinking when we think of all-weather access is, can I get semi-trucks in and out of here on a daily basis, potentially after getting a 5-7 inch rain? What we don't want to do is be in a situation that we get a large downpour and then we have to pause construction on our customer. There's a lot of reasons that you wouldn't want to do that from a building integrity standpoint, but then, as Don has mentioned several times, once we get started, we're spending money. We would really love to have that project finished and let that customer move in and be excited, and then go ahead and recoup our costs at that point. So we do need to have that construction access in place before we can release to that point. It does not have to be where the final driveway location would be, but I would in most cases recommend it. If we're starting with a raw piece of land and we're not prevented from for one reason or another, I would normally recommend that we go ahead and put that construction access there, because many of the materials that are used to build a construction drive are the same materials that go under a paved surface. So one of the things that come to my mind is road base, and there's a reason that it gets that name. And then what we're looking at here in these photos, those are road-based construction driveways. So it's ideal for both purposes. It's ideal for us to use during construction. We can rough it up a little bit. It can be smoothed off and then paved after the smoothed off, repacked, and paved. And we've got a good solid foundation for that final drive, whether it's going to be asphalt, concrete, whatever. And then culverts. Frequently, and if we've driven down some county roads, we've seen bar ditches, right? We've got bar ditches up and down the road, and you can tell, especially when you start getting into some hilly stuff, that water's running down the bar ditch. The moment you build a driveway across that, you're damming that area with that material. So what we don't want to do is build dams in the bar ditches that prevents that water from flowing, because if on the best case scenario, you've just created some mosquito ponds. And in the worst case scenario, you've created an area that, given enough rain, eventually that driveway is going to let go. It's just going to wash out, and we're not going to be able to traverse it anymore. So we're going to want culverts there. Now, at the road is kind of where I was speaking. Counties, subdivisions, cities are frequently going to specify sizes and materials of culverts for us. TxDOT actually is another example, and one of the more restrictive of those. They're going to tell us how big that culvert needs to be, what it needs to be made of. Does it need to have the concrete end caps on it with the 3-to-1 slope that they call safety ramp, and really looks more like a Dukes of Hazzard opportunity, if you ask me. But we're going to want to make sure we're not stopping that water and creating a bad situation and just waiting for it to let go and have an accident. So it lets that water pass under the driveway. Again, the sizing is determined by a couple different entities that we may be dealing with. And in some cases, it may need to be permitted. But I will also say we see a lot of instances where the culvert might be necessary at the road, and then we may also be crossing something on the property further into it that would require us to allow water to pass under the road. So start getting into pieces of property that have a lot of elevation change, maybe a creek running through it. A culvert, again, is how we're going to handle that. And at that point, we're probably not worried about having somebody size it for us or permit it. We just need to make sure that it's adequately sized. So, and then site planning and preparation. So when we meet at your property, and we kind of talk about a lot of stuff just in groups, utilities, and access, we don't need any of that stuff to conduct a stakeout, which is colloquially what we call our process. We're simply going to have a new customer with a new contract. I've got a survey and I've got their floor plan. Let's meet. Let's start to figure these things out. So we're going to conduct a site evaluation, which we've called stakeout forever, and sometimes we use those terms interchangeably. But we're going to meet with you at your property. We're going to try and figure out what your goals and objectives are, and then place that home wherever it is on your property that helps you meet those goals and objectives. Around that, we're going to be identifying any needs your property has to prepare us for construction. So as we go through all that, we're going to go back on.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So as we go through all that, we're going to generate a site plan that's going to show on paper with a few measurements where that home is located on the property. It's going to show things like, this is where we plan to put in this construction access, and there's a culvert needed here. And as you can see on this example, there's a proposed septic area. Maybe there's a proposed water well location elsewhere on this. And then that site preparation, kind of as I said, we're going to determine what's necessary. We're also going to have a conversation about who's going to be responsible for those tasks. So everything that can come up in this process, in this meeting, is something that we really can take on and take care of for our customers, or we can let them handle that themselves. And for a lot of people, being involved and helping make it come together, let them get a lot of satisfaction out of that. So we just need to have a conversation about who's going to do it, so we don't have our wires crossed and it ultimately is getting done.
All right, awesome. I think we actually covered most of this in your thing, so I think we're yeah. You want to talk about? Yeah, we think that. Yeah, did you get groundwork?
Yeah, let's hit it. So in some areas, we're going to do a lot of manipulation of the terrain before we try to build. Again, I kind of mentioned that I cut my teeth in the hill country, and we're not going to do as much of that. We're in solid rock. We're on the side of a cliff. We may do something with the side of that hill, but in all likelihood, we're probably not going to. The rest of the state, Gulf Coast, North Texas, it's a lot more likely that we're going to do something. We may come in and bring in additional soil, create a level spot. Maybe we're going to use the soil that's there, but we're going to take each one on a case-by-case basis. First, determine if it benefits the customer and is necessary, and then we'll start talking about the different approaches that we could use to get us to that final answer, which is either flat or flatter than we started. And then the most important component to all that is ensuring that we've got water running away from our foundation at the end of the day.
Okay.
And then
now
we get to hand it over to the building superintendent.
Awesome. All right. Well, we did have a few more questions come in, so we'll go ahead.
Yeah, and folks, drop your questions in. We'll make this kind of last call right at 3:00. So last call for questions, drop them in there, and we'll answer every single one of them.
Yeah. We got Jason saying, I've said it a million times on here and I can't stress this enough. Let Tilson install your construction drive.
Preach, Jason, preach. Louder for the people in the back.
He's also sharing that those safety ends required by TxDOT are half the cost or more of the culvert install. I got TxDOT to approve a 30-foot culvert, but the requirements are less. Get a culvert as wide as they will approve. You can thank me later.
Yeah. 26 feet is what they say the widest they'll do, but they will approve wider than that.
All right, very nice.
That applies to farm to market roads and state highways. If you're on a county road, you don't have to involve TxDOT. I just want to point that out. It's not all painful.
Okay.
TxDOT's painful.
Then Kevin's asking, if I need to clear a wooded lot, do I contract on my own to clear the spot for the home, or will I go through Tilson?
John, what do we do?
Both are options. I would say that by waiting at least until we've had an opportunity to conduct a stakeout, to meet with you at your property, we can make sure we're clearing the right areas. What you wouldn't want to do in any situation is clear and then have somebody from Tilson come out and indicate that maybe we would be in a fantastic situation over here, and that would achieve your goals better. Again, kind of like the construction drive comment that we just saw, when we do it, one thing I can tell you is it will be done the way we need it done the first time, or that contractor will not receive payment from us. And I have had many customers that go, through the yellow pages, so to speak, find their own contractor, and maybe somewhere along the way something was misinterpreted or misrelayed to that contractor, only for us to come back and find that, we almost did it, but we need him to come back and finish this thing. And frequently what that does is it adds time to the project, which frustrates our customers, or potentially adds cost because their contractor may charge them to come back out. So I don't want anybody to be in that situation.
Or they won't come back out.
Never would twist an arm and say that you've got to use us either. So.
Yep, absolutely.
But you can message Jason McDaniel if you have questions about who you should use.
All right. And that is the last question I see.
Fantastic. So obviously, folks, the journey doesn't have to end here. We have all kinds of ways to get a hold of us. We got a website open 24/7. We got new home specialists on standby to answer those high-level questions, set those appointments. The other, oh, look at the banner we have. Look at that. We have on, wait, we're on Instagram. It says we're on Facebook. It says here we are also on YouTube. Turns out, we have hundreds of videos. In fact, on YouTube, they won't all be on Facebook much longer. Have they already taken them off, Don?
They started in February taking down everything that hadn't happened in the last 30 days. Everything prior to February is still up there, but it'll be gone at the end of this month, I believe.
All of that inappropriate content we put up is going to come down. So, but
all right, we'll just post it again. It's fine.
Yeah, it will be posted again. It'll live on our website forever. It'll live on YouTube forever. So it's not going anywhere. We got 12 locations open 7 days a week with model homes to tour you through. We got 2 beautiful brand new ones, not to mention the 2 that are brand new down in Angleton. They're still brand new, by the way. They're like months old.
They still smell new.
They still are new. They still got wet paint. And then we also got we got the Brazoria in spring that is wrapping up. We got the Cisco up in Weatherford that's wrapping up. So we got a lot of activity out there. You need to come out and see. We got seminars happening. Do we have seminars happening, Don? Where are seminars happening?
Yep, we have 3 seminars happening this weekend. One in Waxahachie. If you want to hear more from John, he's actually presenting. So that's at 11, and then they're going to have some Cinco de Mayo festivities afterwards. And then we also have our financing seminars happening in San Marcos in spring. So if you want to see that new Brazoria model, you can go there.
I think Waco has a seminar on the 10th also, don't they?
Yep, that's next week. So we'll talk about them then.
No, we won't, because we won't.
Oh, you're right, we won't. Oh, sorry.
So what's happening
we won't
next
be
weekend?
here. We won't be here next weekend. So next week. So next weekend we have seminars in Bernie, Waco, and Waco. So those 2.
All right. See, John's on top of it. He's got this stuff under control.
Yeah, John.
Thank goodness we hire good people all over the state. Anyway, so we got where's the Lone Star? Tell them where the Lone Star is, Don.
The Lone Star is in Republic Grand Ranch, which is in Willis.
Yep,
and it is worth the drive. No matter where you are, it is worth the drive. Yeah, just go.
Go check that.
If you're out of state, still go. Just go. It's worth seeing in person.
So, John, thank you so much for joining us, man. I know you're a busy guy. Lots going on. Not just the team you lead, but you got twin babies at home, and so there's like you've got so a lot going on. Thanks for doing this, man. Don, thank you for putting this on. We appreciate that. We appreciate all of you for watching. Do not let the we got
people sneaking in.
I know.
Logan is working with Allie in Georgetown. How close is the price we are quoted in the planning process to the finished price?
It better be pretty spot on. So yeah, no, it goes through some audits as well, Logan. So we have like our cost management team that reviews it upon contract signing. But yeah, I mean the upfront desktop pricing is real. The only variables that end up happening after people sign their contract, we find, are changes they make, which that just happens. It's natural. We don't disparage people for that. It's real. It's your forever home, so we get it. And then the actual engineered foundation design compliance. That's really the only unknown that we have. But outside of that, like there's nothing in the color room, design center. What are we calling it this week? We'll call it design center. There's nothing in the design selection area that you should be able to point to that she can't give you a price right then and there on, level 3 plumbing fixtures, level 7 vinyl plank, whatever the thing is, she has that pricing available and can quote it to you on your e-ticket. That's one of our big things that we tout, along with things like what John's talking about, like, linear footage for water line, electrical line, your septic systems, all that kind of stuff. Like we have that pricing in about 80% of the areas that we build in. We have the pricing hammered out for those things. So the real answer to that question, Logan, is changes. How what is your level of stick-to-itness to what you've chosen after execution of the contract? So, but outside of that, it's really just the foundation design. That's about it.
Awesome. And then Brenda says, "Thank you for all your patience with all my questions." Oh, anytime. Brenda, every time we hear that's why we do this.
Thanks for joining us.
If you weren't asking us questions, we'd have to do real work. So
right, exactly. No one wants to do that. No one wants to do that.
Yeah.
Or sit here and listen to Eric pontificate, which really no one wants to do. But we can. Anyway, so thank you all for joining us. Thanks for doing this. Reach out anytime on any of these mediums, Instagram, Facebook, our website, design centers. We are a gigantic resource for you to make you comfortable with what your decision is. We hope you find this helpful, and we genuinely soon hope to make you part of the Tilson family. We'll see you guys later.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.